Project 44 is the official sponsor of the Innovation Theater at Edge 23. We thank Project 44 for their continued support of CSCMP.
We're going to get going here. Thanks very much for attending our session. Really appreciate that. To kick things off, I'd like to introduce the star of the event here. Ladies and gentlemen, CSCMP's President and CEO, Mark Baxa.
Well, I tell you what, thank you for that, but really, I work for you, and the applause really goes to all of you, our members and affiliates and contributors to this great association. So I'll make my remarks as impactful as I can, but also brief to get on to the real content. So, Art Mescher, a real friend to this association, and a great innovator and certainly creator of all things digital in many aspects, also did something really great 25 years ago. He wrote the 3 V's framework: visibility, variability, and velocity. This really was a tremendous contribution to the supply chain profession back in 1998, and the application and the concept has been very profound in terms of what it's been to help drive CSCMP's presenter with its highest honor, the Distinguished Service Award, which Art received in 2008. He was then elected automatically into the establishment of the Supply Chain Hall of Fame back in 2016. So Art, so well deserved. The 3V principles The 3V principles really teach us to harness visibility, embrace variability, and compete on velocity. Over the years, Art has updated 3 principles based on new developments to help guide companies worldwide. In honor of the 25th anniversary of Art's 3V's framework and CSCMP's 60th anniversary, CSCMP, a supply chain quarterly, is launched an innovation contest. You're about to hear several innovative and creative business solutions, all intended to help our discipline. I want you to thank Art Mescher for his wildly successful career and for his initiation of these awards and certainly this competition. I want to thank Jet McCandless, CEO of Project 44, who is the sponsor of the actual competition and the Innovation Theater, and will be handing out the 3V's award. And Mike Carrozza with Metro Supply Chain, a supporter and certainly great contributor to this association, and the Ask the Expert Theater, who will be handing out the Best Overall Startup Award. I want to thank our judges who participated in reviewing all of the submissions, and there were many, certainly for their intentional engagement and review of everything that we put together through this competition. You're all leaders in your own right in supply chain and make supply chain really world class. Not only have you given your time to evaluate all of our terrific submissions, but you yourself traveled here to participate in the final voting and truly appreciate that. I want to give a huge thank you to Maria McDonald. Maria is the director. Maria is the Director of Client Services for DC Velocity and Supply Chain Quarterly. So Maria, thank you very much for all that you did behind the scenes and to make this a reality. She's masterfully coordinated this award and submissions in our judging process. I'd like to thank all of you for being a part of this. I hope you really enjoy this. I'm excited right here in the middle of the exchange. So Rick, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you very much.
All right. Mark, thanks very much. Well, I appreciate the support here. The way this is going to work, we're going to have presentations, 5 minutes each. And we're going to have a few minutes, about 2 minutes for each of our judges, if they so desire, to ask a question of our presenters. And I'd ask the judges, we have the mics here, they're live, so if you'd please use the microphone when you ask your questions, pass it along. So we're recording this, and that way everyone will be able to hear us. So we're really thrilled about this. Art and I have been talking about this for some time now, and it was really born out of a conversation. When Art Mescher calls you at 6 p.m. and you have your first martini in your hand, you know you have to set the rest of the night aside. And it was a lot of fun and a lot of great innovation that came out of this. So we're going to get going here. The winners, by the way, will get a series of press releases and a lot of acknowledgement. There also is a premier membership from CSCMP, a charitable donation made in their name to our Center for the Advancement of Talent for CSCMP. And also our B2B agency, Corroboree, will be providing 20 hours of service to the winner of the Startup Award. So there's going to be a lot going on here on this stage, so get ready for some fast-paced innovation. So without further ado, if I could call up Local Line. Just use this button
These
to
ones here?
advance it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, great. All right, hi everybody. My name is Cole. I'm the founder and the CEO at Local Line. Local Line is the leading supply chain platform for regional food systems, which means that our business does two things. We're a SaaS platform for direct market farmers, and what that means is that we work with farmers that sell direct to the customer. In most cases, that's to restaurants or to grocery stores. In some cases, it's also to households. When we onboard a farmer, they use Local Line as their system of record for all of their inventory, their orders, invoicing, payments, all of their fulfillment. The second thing our business does is we work with food buyers, so the same restaurants and grocery stores that I just talked about, and we help them build local food supply chains. So they can choose from over 13,000 farmers that are on our platform, and we help them spin up regional procurement programs. All right, so anybody who's spent time in today's food system knows that the gap between what we currently have and consumer trends is continually widening. Today's food system is heavily centralized, it's mass-produced, there's about 40% food waste, and on average the farmer gets about 14 cents of each dollar. Whereas what consumers are looking for is the opposite. They want a direct connection to local farmers. They want to regenerate our farmland. They want less waste, and they want farmers to earn fair margins. And this is a problem because today's food supply chain prevents food retailers from capitalizing on these consumer trends. Local Line is a solution. We are re-engineering the supply chain to help retailers adapt to these consumer trends. And we're using the 3 V's to do it. The first one for us is visibility. What you see on the slide is a heat map of all of the farmers that use Local Line. And when a farmer comes and joins Local Line, we collect the following information as that system of record platform that I mentioned. We get their inventory info, price info, all their fulfillment information, but we also get really helpful product attributes like any food safety they have, traceability, and certifications. When you total it, there's over 340,000 local products that are available for sale in regional networks on our platform. So we have the largest database of local foods in North America. We integrate with all of the popular ERP platforms, and what that means is that when you start with visibility as a foundation, you enable transactions in any kind of distribution pattern because we have nationwide coverage. We inject velocity by sharing inventory and routing between our farmers. So when a farmer joins Local Line, they don't just join it as a single standalone system for their customers. Farmers can actually connect with their neighbors, with other farms that are on Local Line. They can share inventory, they can resell products, and they can share routes so that they can meet demand. So this actually works in real life. None of this is theoretical. These are 3 examples of customers of ours, sort of small, medium, large, if you will. Portland Food Co-op is a member-owned co-op in Portland, Maine that uses our platform to buy from about 10 different local vendors. We have regional grocery chains like Roche Bros Supermarkets that has 20 different stores that uses Local Line across every store in every category. And then we have Chipotle on the bigger end of our customer base. They use Local Line to run their entire local foods program. So they use our platform in all 3,200 restaurants to buy from about 60 different farmers across all distribution centers. More than just benefits to business like use cases to the actual buyers, Local Line is helping to create a better food supply chain. So the average distance from farm to fork on Local Line is 99.6 miles compared to the national average of 2,000, which means that year to date we've helped save about 612 million, food miles. And on our platform, instead of the farmer getting 14 cents to every dollar, they get 84 cents to every dollar, which gives them the chance to reinvest and grow their businesses. That's it. Thank you.
Hang on a minute, Cole. We might have some questions here. Any questions from the judges for Cole? You take the microphone out and, yeah, there you go. It should be on.
Okay. So thanks a lot for the presentation. My question will be, is there any plan to scale internationally? And will this not lead to kind of, let's say, ESG problems?
We do have farms in 8 countries right now, like paying farms on our platform in 8 countries. It's all English speaking for right now. Languages is probably not too far off in the future for us. Internationalization, absolutely. It always starts with getting the farmers first and let them use the software. And then once you have a mass of the farmers, you can layer on the buyer. And I don't fully understand the ESG issue. Right. Yeah, so in our system, it's all about local food, so it's all regional food systems. So basically, it's all these like isolated pockets, of regional food systems, even though the software is used in lots of places. Yeah.
What percentage of the farmers in the United States you currently are with you now?
What percentage of all farms in the United States are on our platform?
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine your growth potential.
Right. Yeah. So there's about 2 million family farms in North America, and we have 13,000. So like a fraction of a percent. Yeah. A rounding error.
So what was the inspiration behind the start of the business?
It was like a dorm room startup. I started delivering product, like mostly potatoes and ground beef, from Mennonite farmers in Waterloo, Ontario, where Art and I are from, to a bunch of chefs on our main strip while I was in university. So it started as like great beer money, and then when I graduated, I was making enough that I could actually like pay my rent. So I just like kept doing it, and then just stuck with it.
Hi, I love this. Can you tell me what were the key levers to deliver the 84% versus the 14?
A lot of it is just reducing the number of times the product changes hand on its way from farm to fork. So the national average, that 2,000 miles that I referenced before, on average, the product changes hands 6 times. It goes from farmer to producer to manufacturer to distributor to store, and then to your plate. So a lot of the work that we've had to do is focus on how to get like the logistics of these sort of like hyper-local supply chains, and basically you're just trying to remove middlemen. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
How about a nice round of applause to Cole? Thanks, Cole. Next is going to be Precision AI. I'm sorry, I don't know the names of everyone. Tom, there you go. Tom. By the way, Tom and his son Chris Keith Moore presented today. So we have generations of supply chain leaders. Go ahead, buddy.
And Keith will be presenting in the other part of this thing today. So we've got 2 of the 7. I'm Tom Moore. I'm the CEO. I'm Tom Moore. I'm the CEO of Provision AI. We don't believe that you should live with variability. We think you should use our software to eliminate variability in supply planning, where supply planning is the move of product from the warehouse, so the plants to the customer-facing warehouse. And supply planning variability is a big problem for large consumer products and small consumer product manufacturers, which unfortunately is not handled by the current supply planning systems. So we have solved that problem using technology that actually has already received a patent. It works. It works fast. It continually updates daily. And it provides benefits not only for the suppliers, but for their customers, for you and I, and for the carriers. So it's been a huge value proposition. So consumer spending habits are not consistent. That's the challenge. And retailers then come back and they have a purchase plan that is consistent with what their customers want, but not consistent with what the supplier wants. We then have the planning system creating a worsening volatility inside the supply chain. And here's what it looks like. This is a real example from one of our customers of deployments going from the Midwest to the East Coast. Imagine how you deal with this. On one day you've got 24 shipments, on the next day you've got 3. So on the day of 24 shipments, the transportation guy's got to go out and find 24 trucks. In this case, they were running intermodal as the standard. They had to go back and use truck at much higher expense. Imagine the problem at the shipping location. Hey, we need a lot of labor to move that product onto the trucks. And then when it gets to the receiving location, they've got exactly the same problem, right? They've got to unload. This creates a problem, detention, and potentially a truck that's waiting to be unloaded could in fact have product on it that's needed for a customer, which is needed for maybe you and I. And therefore we could suffer as well. Okay. We think you need to fix this with our level load software, which is a digital twin of the supply chain. It uses some linear programming technology, some AI and heuristics, and it bolts on to existing supply planning software to understand holistically across the supply chain what not only that we have to make service, customer service levels, and meet customer service requirements, but also has to understand the capacity issues across the network. And those capacity limits, like we don't have any space in this warehouse, and we have to then trade off and understand how much of that space, how do we use that? Now consider this is Kimberly-Clark's warehouse network. That warehouse in the northwest has a number of supply points, 14 of them in particular. Those 14 supply points have 14 different planners. How do you coordinate against that? Well, the answer is with a system that looks at everything and does this kind of smoothing, taking things from very sawtooth down to a smooth pattern. Now notice it's not perfectly flat. It's not perfectly flat because we will have to meet customer service requirements. So what's the benefits? The benefits are, several $1 million in savings. The benefits are better customer service, better in full on time. I won't play the video because we had some snafus up front, but this is Kimberly-Clark saying, hey, this is a breakthrough. This is a major change in our network, and it's a total game changer for us. It's a win for the shippers, it's a win for carriers, it's a win for customers, and frankly, it's a win for you and I. So we hit it at exactly 5 minutes with a snafu, so we're good here. Questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm trying to understand what's AI here. I mean, it seems like leveling is something that planners and software systems have been doing for ages. So I understand putting AI for everybody who does software today is good form. Okay. But what's really behind door number 3?
What's behind door number 3 is we use linear programming, which is a well-established 1950s technology to look at the network. Linear programming does a very bad job of determining what should go on a truck and how to stack it on the truck. It doesn't understand all those pieces. And so we developed a load builder that gets the information from the LP. That load builder includes AI to do a very fast calculation about what's going to go on each truck and feed that back to the LP. So we have a patent on that particular process. Okay, so the AI is reinforcement learning, and it's working on how to stack and load things inside the truck.
So I have a question. So first of all, I like the idea because that I feel like this is what we teach since 20, 30 years in supply chain, right?
I'm old.
Reduce the bullwhip effect, right? My challenge for you is how do you convince the planner to not download, do Excel stuff, and upload again?
We plan in the Kimberly-Clark world, for example, at 3 a.m. on a Monday morning. At 3 a.m., we do the analysis, takes about 15 minutes. By 4 a.m., we have tendered the loads for Friday. So on Monday, we're tendering for Friday. On Thursday, we come back and say what's going to go on those loads. So we get the advantage of later differentiation of what's going to happen, okay? So to answer your question, what we have done is pretty much automate most of the process. I would say north of 85% of all shipments for deployment in Kimberly-Clark are being done exclusively through this technology, no touch. Okay? They love it. The planners love it. They're dealing with the exceptions, not the balance of the problems that you deal with Excel spreadsheets. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Tom. All right, thanks, Tom.
So you talked a lot about Kimberly-Clark. I'm assuming you have other customers? And that's the first question. The second question is, do you have any data on what the savings has been to Kimberly-Clark?
I'll answer the second question first. I do have data on what the savings have been at Kimberly-Clark. I am not permitted to share them, okay? Kimberly-Clark has made that statement you saw in the document. In terms of other customers, Kimberly-Clark was our launch customer, and they are and continue to be our base upon which we will build. So do we have other customers? No. Are we talking with other folks? Yes. Other folks are very interested.
Do we have time for one more question?
Yes, one more question.
Yeah, one more question.
One more question.
We don't let you go. It looks too good to be true.
So everything is too good to be true, but yes.
I'll be interested to know what your customer have to change to adopt your solution, because you have always a trade-off between moving goods, inventory level. If you win on all sides, there's something else you have to change, and that's what I like to know.
It's been an interesting event, and I think I'm allowed to say that inventory actually has declined. Okay, service has gone up, so those are two wins. Why is that? It's because we're using a whole bunch of priorities to drive what gets shipped. So take the example, we determined we needed 5 trucks on this lane on Friday. We did that on Monday. We come to Thursday, we look at the planning solution. The planning solution says, I need 6 trucks. Well, you got 5. You're not getting 6. So it says, okay, let's rank all the things in terms of priority order and draw a line at the point where we get to 5, okay? Plus, the second point to that is, during the week, we're actually re-looking at those things. And we're looking out a full 30 days to make sure that we're dealing with month-end, month-end and those kind of events, okay? Too good to be true? Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it, Wade.
Finally get me off.
Thanks, no. All right, next will be Transvoyant. Allison.
Hello, good evening. I'm Allison Fowler, Chief Product Officer at Transvoyant, and I am honored to be here. Can't hear? Okay. Can you hear me now? Allison Fowler, Chief Product Officer at Transvoyant. I'm honored to be here competing with these other innovative supply chain companies. Today I'm going to talk to you about three things. So the first one is why your supply chain needs situational awareness. The second is how Transvoyant's 3 E's are a response to Art Mesher's 3 V's. And the third is how we're powering the future autonomic supply chain. So I'm going to dive right into it with some use cases from our customers. So one use case, we actually saved 5 million vaccine doses in the last 3 years. Merck, one of our customers, uses us to do predictive analytics around their temperature excursions. So we're able to prevent and predict in real time using live situational awareness around their cold chain operations before a temperature excursion occurs and be able to save that dose. Another use case here, we have McKesson as a customer. Transvoyant actually orchestrates 300,000 McKesson deliveries a day. So within the 4-hour time window, we're orchestrating those deliveries to pharmacies, hospitals, doctors around the country, delivering life-saving medical devices. A third use case is kind of where we started, which is with the DoD. We do live asset tracking for the military. I'm really loud on my side. Are you guys hearing me okay? Okay. So a little bit about where we came from. So our founder is Air Force and actually stood up the infrastructure post 9/11 that monitors and watches the world's data to interdict and prevent national security threats. So essentially coming out of that work that he did with the national security team, took that same technology, and we have a patented approach to listen to data, social data, weather data, and then that comes to my 3 E's: enterprise, ecosystem, and external data that we bring together for our customers to provide that live situational awareness for them. Let me get to the next one here. I don't know why it looks like that. Something's really wrong on the slide, so I'm just going to build it out. So this is a little bit about our approach. So this is, we take our 3 E data, enterprise, external, and ecosystem data, to respond to the variability and act on the visibility, and then provide velocity to our customers. So we have a pretty standard approach. We look at any signal or disruption in your supply chain, whether that be like the temperature excursions for Merck, or deliveries that are delayed for McKesson, and we take that through our approach, which you can't see here, but the approach is essentially to interrogate the data. So we bring in their enterprise data, external data, and ecosystem data, and then we also have carbon data has been a part of our fabric in our system from the beginning, so we're able to report on emissions at a very accurate vessel level, not just OD pair average. And then we take our machine learning, our AI, we have a business rules engine, which is a part of our patented approach to taking the data, pulling out the relevant data to take business action on it. And then the bottom half of this circle, which is anticipate and act, is really where we stand out. I was in global supply chain at Medtronic before my role here with Transvoyant, and a lot of providers, many of which are here, happy to partner with you guys, work on the visibility and work on the predictive area. What we do at Transvoyant is provide that real-time situational awareness in the moment, because we're listening to all that live data. Not EDI, right? It's live, real-time data that we're pulling in from around the world. And then we're able to real-time interdict. One of our recent innovations, we rolled out a collaboration with Meta, with Facebook, where we actually are taking the prediction and sending it out via WhatsApp as an action to like a local courier in Brazil. So we're on the ground with the operators, applying the predictive analytics in their hands to be able to act. Hopefully my next slide here. So essentially we're all on this journey. I'm going to skip this one because I lost some time there. So the future autonomic supply chain, the third thing I wanted to talk to you about. We have, all of this IoT data. We're bringing that into our system. We're bringing in our enterprise data. We're bringing in the carriers, the suppliers, MES data. We have a recent innovation with one of our customers around predicting their supply signal to be able to do available to promise downstream. So as we bring in all this data, we're envisioning this future where your supply chain is run off of those signals, right? So your tire has an issue, it sends a signal to your car knows you're on vacation next week, it schedules an appointment with the repair center, your car drives itself to the repair center in this future world. And all of those signals are sending signals back up the supply to your manufacturing. And we are an orchestrator of those signals. We're doing it with our customers today. We're looking for more customers to partner with us, providers on the visibility side, on the data side. We're looking for more customers with use cases that can help us get to that real-time acting and disseminating that predictive analytics to your operators to be able to act and improve your supply chain. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Yes, one question. When I look at where you're coming from, your roots, it's I see a lot of curated data, validated data. As you move towards enterprise data, you're going to see that it's rarely you're going to see a company with good data. A lot of, 40% of the Bin Laden in US have missing data. So what's your plan to overcome, this situation?
Yeah, it's a good question. So to quote one of our customers, the head of supply chain said, "Transvoyant provides us perfect data." When I first joined Transvoyant, I heard that, I thought, okay, you're crazy, right? So she really talks about how we are able to bring that data in, synthesize it. If you imagine, even in the beginning of in the national security instance, there's still a lot of not relevant data, right? So you have to be able to circumvent that data. You have to be able to find the trends, and that comes to the machine learning and the AI, where we'll be able to pull out the significant data to act on that. So we have a data healing, data cleansing part of our offering that helps with that. It's a good point, though.
I would have a question to see whether I understand it. So classical planning software providers have a central approach, right? So everything is modeled. They plan, decide, and then they execute. It sounds like you decentralize this approach, right? So put it on the nodes, like your example with the car. Is that what you do? And how, if that is true, how do you then still kind of work with a centralized entity to take decisions?
Just to repeat the question, you said we put it on the, what was the part? The nodes? The nodes?
So as I understand, whether it's a node or whether it's a warehouse or whether it's a car or whatsoever.
Yeah.
And based on that, you take then decisions. You take local decisions,
yes,
not central decisions.
Yeah. So we're monitoring global flow and behavior data, and to your point, at a device level or an asset level, the live asset tracking we do for the military example, and then we're bringing all that in, combining it with external data that we've been curating for 11 years, and identifying potential risks and offering options to mitigate those risks. And then to your point, so one of the ways we disseminate our information is we push back into a planning system. So we have examples where we're looking at variability in transit time, and we're pushing those back into the planning systems. We have examples where we're looking at supply signals upstream and predicting the arrival of supplies and raw materials, and then feeding that into a master planning schedule at a site. So it depends on where we're looking, but we're integrating with those execution and planning systems. Yeah.
How do you train the model to go from this data to conclusions and recommendations, which seems like you're doing?
Yeah,
How do you train it?
Yeah, we have a variety of machine learning algorithms that we're applying to run through those different trends and identify them. So that goes back into our patent on prescriptive analytics. So we're applying those different machine learning algorithms.
So Allison, with Merck or McKesson or the Department of Defense, do you have any data in terms of how much they're saving or benefits that they're seeing? I mean, obviously, we understand the benefits, but do we have any numbers around that?
So with Merck, we have the 5 million doses. And with McKesson, we have about 60% call center volume reduction. So by providing visibility to their customers around predictive ETAs, their call center volume went down significantly and customer service went up.
Allison, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. Thank you, Allison. Okay, we are going to move into the area of best startups. And to kick us off is going to be AutoScheduler. And Keith, right? Keith Moore. Hi, Keith.
Chris, my other
Chris.
name. No,
Yeah,
no,
right.
It's Keith. It's Keith.
Just hit that button there.
All right, I've now been briefed. I need to speak very loudly into where you guys can hear me. Can everybody hear me okay? Great. So my name is Keith Moore. Great to meet everybody. I'm based down in Austin, Texas. I am the CEO of AutoScheduler AI. Just a little background on me, mechanical engineer by training. I have about a few dozen machine learning and mathematics and artificial intelligence patents to my name, so fairly well versed in the space. Happy to talk about it later on. And I have a question for everybody, which is, does anybody in here run a network of warehouses or have a network of warehouses that they manage? All right, a few folks, great. So I asked the question to every single VP of supply chain, every director of operations that I actually go and meet, which is, how do you run your warehouses? Can you tell me exactly what processes you follow and how you manage your sites start to finish? And unfortunately, not a lot of them know, because the space is fairly fragmented at this point, meaning they're using third-party logistics providers. They might have legacy processes, legacy systems that they're running, or every site does it a little bit differently, which is really unfortunate. Because when you think about warehouses as a whole, they are the grand central station of the supply chain. They don't get a lot of love at a lot of conferences, but your distribution sites are where product comes in, product goes out, every single product is touched. That site is responsible for making sure that every product makes it exactly to its end destination, end customer, on time, in full. And there are so many different processes that have to be managed inside of warehouses around picking, replenishment, allocation, and even, where do you load, when do you unload, what product do you need because it's hot on an inbound. And the challenge with all of these sites is that there's a select group of people that are actually responsible for making them run. I call them the unsung heroes of distribution, warehousing, and the unsung heroes of supply chain. These are your planners, your taskers, your work queue coordinators, your site managers. These are the people that are responsible for looking at all the equipment that they have, the shift schedule, the demand, what needs to go out, when it needs to be there, what you have on the yard, and figuring out exactly when we need to release the work and who needs to be on what task at what time, and how we can manage all of that. On top of that, these people are responsible for also understanding what to do when their labor force doesn't show up to work, when trucks show up late, when products are damaged, when new orders are dropped that they weren't accounting for. This is one of the hardest jobs in supply chain. And when these people are out of the office, the site fails. Anybody who's run a supply chain knows what a good warehouse manager looks like. Anybody knows what a bad warehouse manager looks like. So P&G realized that they had this problem, which is they didn't always necessarily know how to run the site. So they had their good managers, they had their bad managers, but what they wanted was consistent managers. Everybody needed to live off of one plan all the time on how exactly they needed to run the site. What was coming in, when was it coming, what door was it using, what needed to go out. So AutoScheduler was actually built for the need at P&G almost a decade ago as an initial consulting engagement. Since then, it caught like wildfire, became the global standard at Procter & Gamble for how to actually run a distribution site inside of their network. A few years ago, Procter & Gamble released us from our non-disclosure. We owned all the intellectual property. So AutoScheduler re-platformed as a software as a service company, and we actually brought our offering to market. So in those 3 years, we have significantly expanded our growth in the consumer goods market. We have also started to garner quite a few awards from the likes of Gartner, as well as a variety of reputable organizations that are here. So we've grown very significantly since launch on our customer base, particularly chasing these whales. And the reason why is we enable these supply chain heroes, these people that actually make ends meet in distribution sites, to do their job more effectively. So how we do that is advanced optimization in every single warehouse. Get all the data for shipments, all the data for receipts, all your inventory data, your item master, your locations, your trailers. Run a massive optimization very frequently that says, here is exactly the schedule that you need to meet, who is doing what, when they are doing it, and when that work is going to be done with all the constraints that exist inside the building, right? You only have so much space, you only have so much labor, there are only so many things you can manage. You end up with more effective planning, less inventory touches, and completely optimized labor, which is a huge problem, particularly when you're talking about the introduction of automated guided vehicles. The value this brings is your sites are always executing to plan, you're increasing productivity at your site anywhere from 5 to 15%, thanks to less touches, making sure everybody's exactly where they need to be all the time. And that tribal knowledge that your best people have, you can actually configure it for every site. So they can train AutoScheduler how they want it to run the site, and it will continue to do that, even when they're not in office. My ask of you is if anybody wants to talk about optimizing your warehouse network today, or what we could do for potentially any of your customers, be happy to talk. Thank you very much. No, it's all right.
Questions for Keith from our judges? We have one over here.
Hey, Keith. Who is your main competitor when you're trying to get someone to buy your product, and then why do they buy you versus someone else?
Right, the standard answer here, right, we are a fairly new type of technology on the market. There is nobody that does specifically what we do, which is sitting on top of a warehouse management system and does massive constraint optimization. However, a lot of warehouse management systems are trying to get into the space. So the competitor is going to be a perception of an existing warehouse management system, none of which have the capabilities we have today, or in-house competition. There are, companies are hiring teams of developers now. I've seen, some of these shippers are actually building out software engineering teams to go and try to build their own solutions in-house. I would say that's the number one competitor. Secondary would be, hey, why don't I have this in my existing WMS?
Keith, nice presentation.
Thank you.
Most of the customers that you had up there use 3PLs extensively. How does your software interact with the 3PLs?
3PLs actually become the primary user of our software if they're running the site, right? It gives everybody a level playing field in that a Procter & Gamble and a DHL both know exactly what's happening just by logging into AutoScheduler. But when you think about the 3PL running the site, those are the folks in the shipping office that are actually using it day in and day out. So it's more about how are you training them? What does their day-to-day look like? How does it change from their current process in using AutoScheduler?
So the 3PLs are passing on the savings back to their customers, or they're keeping it?
That's always a fun balance depending on if it's cost plus or how the 3PL actually operates. But yes.
Can you talk about...
Sorry.
Hi.
Hi, sorry.
No worries. Can you talk about the hardest parts of getting adoption in your system? For example, normalizing data, working around custom workflows that customers may have, integration to specific WMS systems or other systems. Can you talk about the biggest barriers to adoption?
Sure. 3 years ago, my answer would have been very different than it is now. Sorry. We at this point have fairly stock integrations for most of the major WMS systems out there. Like, for example, we're part of the SAP I/O program and have we are actually on the SAP I/O price book at this point. So there's not everybody views this as competitive. But I would say the biggest challenge that we face at this point is particularly in the scenarios where a shipper might purchase an AutoScheduler and wants to use it across their network, but every 3PLs have different levels of reticence with regards to adopting new technology. There's people that have been in that shipping office for 30 years that know better than anybody how to run a site. And the challenge that with getting the change management done there is making sure you have a really good partner coming in with you and helping them understand, hey, we're not trying to replace you, we're trying to de-risk the whole operation. And this is doing it every 15 to 20 minutes. You might do it once a day. So your job is to train this system to think like you. And as conditions change, every warehouse is slowly evolving, coaching them on exactly what that needs to look like. So the change management is certainly the hardest challenge.
What is the riskiest assumption that you're making? The thing that, if you're right, means that you're going to be really successful, and if you're wrong, it means you probably won't.
I would say the riskiest assumption comes back to the biggest challenge that we have, which is everybody in the market is ready for the change management we're bringing. Because what we just talked about, right, that planning, that codification of what people are doing is extremely powerful in showing them what the plan needs to look like, but that's not where it ends, right? It ends with decision-making automation. So we have sites that are actually, they don't touch their warehouse management system. It auto-waves, auto-allocates, auto-manages the work queue, auto-manages cuts, changes things when trucks don't show up, changes things when people don't show up. People don't touch anything. And I think it's a risk to assume everybody is willing to adopt that model quickly. And for us, we have a first mover's advantage as a company, which is extremely valuable for us, but it also means there's a lot of education required. So it is certainly risky to say we're going to go into an operation that's using pen and paper and automate everything.
Thanks, Keith.
All right,
Thanks
thank
very
you guys.
much. Thanks, Keith. We appreciate it. All right, let me see here. Get my... There we go. All right, next is Isometric Technologies and Brian Crystal. Just use this little arrow here.
And John Stoffer. Hello, Sharks.
You got two of us. Clap if you can hear me.
I am John Stoffer.
And I'm Brian Crystal, and we are
Isometric Technologies.
A cloud-hosted data collaboration platform that enables multiple stakeholders across the supply chain to reconcile and validate performance data. ISO contextualizes and structures performance data, creating a cloud-based infrastructure to drive transformative change at scale. And because there's no reliability in service performance data today, due to siloed systems of record and misalignment across supply chain partners, the future of supply chain decision-making will be based on ISO's performance data. We've all heard about Amazon Prime, Uber, Airbnb. They've all changed the way consumer expectations and how we buy products. Hit a button, get a ride. Hit a button, get a meal. Hit a button, get your stuff. Consumer demand stock shelves and overnight delivery, and so retailers demand exceptional, almost perfect performance into their vendors. So much so that they're changing the way that they associate performance and stringent SLAs on those vendors. So really what's happened is performance has become the new currency at which retailers and their vendors trade on. And the demand for top performance from your customers isn't going away, and it's yours to lose. As a result, you're constantly playing that tug-of-war between cost and service, and it's one that your company obviously can't lose. There we go. Does this look familiar to people? Why is data so unreliable? Because the methods that people use to manage it today across the supply chain look like this, no joke. And why does that really matter to us? You have $800 billion in the US spent on freight transportation every year. You have 1 million trucking companies that you're working with to move that, and there's no third-party validated performance set of data to associate who you should work with, why you should work with them, and what is the actual cost to your supply chain. It's a big risk.
As former operators in this space, we've lived the pain of scorecarding firsthand. We've seen the impact it has across teams and the friction that it creates between logistics partners. ISO solves this pain point with a modern multiplayer scorecarding solution that gives shippers and their transportation partners a single source of truth to actively manage performance. And the benefits of reliable performance data extend far beyond the walls of transportation. In terms of how ISO works, we take unstructured, siloed data sets across your supply chain and aggregate them together, creating a DNA strand starting when the order is received to when the freight invoices are paid. We measure the performance of both your orders and shipments based on customer and carrier-specific SLAs, and anything negatively impacting these SLAs are captured, contextualized, and quantified in ISO. How often does your data line up with that of your transportation partners? Data reconciliation happens today organically via emails, phone calls, QBRs, or brute force. It's important that you and your partners get on the same page, but today it's incredibly manual and offline. ISO streamlines this process and organizes it cleanly within the context of the associated orders and shipments, and the result is an outcome that both parties agree on with context, backup documentation, and the metrics to reflect that. ISO also gives logistics partners visibility into the hidden costs from service failures. From a transportation procurement perspective, this data helps optimize decisions and impact the bottom line. Take any given lane, in this case, Chicago to Worcester, Mass. See how the RFP evolves when you incorporate things like OTIF penalties, spot market exposure, and even accessorials. This data helps de-risk procurement decisions and make sure you're selecting the right partner based on your customers' expectations. Further, reliable transportation data helps shippers identify issues upstream, so shippers can root cause issues and create a clean record of responsible party for every single service-related issue. This allows customer logistics teams to proactively track their inbound performance into customers so that they can quickly identify which orders and issues are violating customer SLAs and determine whether they should be disputed or not, and easily collect backup documentation from the carriers to submit those disputes.
Many solutions out there tell you what happened with an order or shipment, the good old dot on the map. ISO tells you why, who's responsible, and most importantly, what did it actually cost you? At the end of the day, it's all about the Benjamins, and ISO is all about the results. We work with some of the largest shippers and transportation providers in the world. We've improved on-time delivery by over 26% year over year. We've overturned hidden transportation costs and responsible parties by 38% and reduced unwarranted vendor compliance penalties like OTIF by 31%. And while we've had tremendous success so far building and scaling a practical, innovative solution that adds value for today's supply chain, we have a vision. Our goal is to become the global supply chain's trusted source of truth for performance data, the FICO score of supply chain. We believe that ISO scores will power the way organizations assess risk and play a key factor in determining partnerships in the future. ISO scores will help procurement teams and planners optimize networks based on customer expectations. They'll inform pricing strategies, and they'll motivate warehouses to eliminate bottlenecks and drive efficiencies. We believe that at scale, ISO will help eliminate waste from the global supply chain and foster a more efficient, balanced logistics system where everyone in the world and in the supply chain can benefit. Thank you.
You mentioned that you work with Fortune 500 companies. What are some of the most interesting insights, or what's the most interesting insight a Fortune 500 company has had using your software?
Yeah, I'll start with that. So what we see across the table, and we see a lot of data, upwards of 40% of ERP data is wrong, right? And upwards of 30% of TMS data is wrong. Missing EDI codes, incorrect coding, lack of context. It's a lot of challenging, systems in between that we can kind of see and reconcile, and it's a big difference, especially when you're using that data to pull into BI and analytics tools and throw analysts at that to really look at, what decisions should you be make. You're only as good as the underlying data quality, and if you can't solve for that, you're making bad decisions every day.
Maybe I'll extend a little bit on that point. Showed a great UI of all of the data and the analytics associated with it, but a lot of other business processes and systems can be very valuably used with the data that you're coming up with. So is there an API that taps into other systems, other business processes, et cetera, that can take advantage of the data that you're providing?
Yeah, the question was, is the data accessible from other systems and processes? If you couldn't hear that, we couldn't really hear that either. Yeah, we have an API that allows all of our shippers to export the data into whatever systems or processes that they choose to use. Typically, we're seeing this ported into procurement and RFP solutions, but it's also ported into global central reporting systems so that they've got this accessible across all teams.
Who handles the all of the messiness in the system? Like you talked about the TMS data not reconciling with the ERP, or maybe there's a big rainstorm that impacted why something didn't show up on time. Is it your team or is it the customer's team that manages through that?
Yeah, so it's collaborative or data collaboration. So the software routes any exception or issue to the responsible or associated party. So if it looks like a shipment issue, it will immediately go to the carrier as the first point of response. If it looks like a supply chain issue internally, we'll route it to the team that's responsible for that order or the warehouse that's responsible for that order. So it's handled by the teams of the customer and their transportation providers themselves, not ours.
I think I see that you guys were founded in 2014. So can you tell me a little bit about your journey? Did you have to pivot to get to this point to get traction, or what's causing you to get traction now?
Yeah, so we actually founded in 2020. Okay. Yeah, pitch book. See, they got a data problem. We started Uber Freight in 2016, but we started ISO 2 weeks before quarantine. So we got our first round of investment capital, and so we had to, build and scale and onboard enterprise customers from our living rooms. But it's been pushing a boulder up a hill for a while, but the product's working. Customers are sticking around, and we're building a big data infrastructure, which we're really excited about.
Thank you. What a nice round of applause, Brian. Thanks, buddy. Brian and John from ISO. Thank you, Brian and John. Okay, next. Ajesh Kapoor from SemiCab. Let's hit this one here.
Got it. My name is Ajesh Kapoor, founder of SemiCab. We're dealing with one of those age-old problems that Yossi, Tracy, all us in transportation have been talking about for a long, long time. When we talk about tracking networks, we talk about empty miles. We keep talking about backhaul and things like that, though. So we are trying to change the paradigm on that, banish the term backhaul. The whole concept of how the truck is moving, where it is domiciled, where it has to go, we want to look at it as an entire network, a connected network across the enterprises. So that's where we come in. We are taking the approach where we bring multiple enterprises into the mix, bring the supply into the same mix, but then try to predict and optimize across those guys, across the entire network, not just at analytical level, but then try to go into the practice, everyday operations, and dynamically orchestrate that. That's the big piece where when you are trying to execute, things are always going to go wrong. The truck is going to break down. You're going to encounter traffic that you did not forecast. So those are the things that we are trying to do. When we talk about collaborative transportation, it's not the traditional collaboration where you put two parties in, you basically say, go work with each other, try to find a way to work with them. We're basically building the entire piece, not just as technology only, but services on top of it, making a bigger bet than just providing technology to somebody and somebody else is making the bet based on your technology. At a very simple level, what does that mean? It basically means that those are three loads that belong to three different companies that you combine into a round trip. All of us are familiar with this. All of us have been thinking about it for the longest time. It doesn't matter in the round trip where the truck is starting, it just has to come back to the same location. It has to come back to its domicile. Looks very, very simple. The part that makes it more complicated is when we look at what we are trying to extract it from. So we have this graphic for India where we started looking at it Q3 of last year, the network. One organization doesn't look very complex. Two, this is just the data for 6 organizations that started participating with us. When you look at these 6, the key is when you look across them, you can cut across the variability. When you look across them, you get the different level of velocity. So all these companies, we are looking at primary transportation, full truckload only. All of these guys have enough volume, and that volume has seasonality, but when you start looking across, you minimize that part of it, right? So in this particular case, what we looked at was somewhere around 700,000 loads that were going across the country from point A to point B. We are trying to find those round trips in there, and those round trips go to a very different level of granularity than a typical TMS, any transportation planning application that we go through. So in these, when you look at this trip, the truck domicile is in there, where the truck is going to take a break. That part is already pre-planned. This is what it looks like in India. And when we look at the visibility side of it, we are tracking that truck, because the one big part when we talk about dynamic execution is, if something goes wrong with the trip that we planned, what are you going to do next? You're trying to reduce empty miles. Our key metric is 10% empty miles for the network. Traditionally, I think we've talked about listening to whichever source, it goes 25 to 40%. If we are trying to do that and we say, oh, the happy path didn't come about, we have the next one. So you go from 10% empty to 11% empty to 12% empty. You don't go from 10% empty to 50% empty. That is the contingency planning that we built into the system, where for every happy path, we have somewhere around 400 to 1,000 backup contingency plans built into the system. The part that it does, the metrics change. For India, when we talk about using a truck, it, on an average today, it does 5,000 kilometers in a month. When you take it to 7,500 kilometers, it's 30% less trucks on the road, a whole lot less carbon on the road. And the last piece that we do in this entire planning is, the big parameter is, you have to bring the driver back home in a predictable amount of time. So every time we are pulling in a contingency plan as well, we're basically saying the plan can change, but the driver still needs to get back in the 7 days that they were planning for. So that's the driver quality of life. Now the biggest piece in there, so we talk about technology, we talk about the business model. I think the big part comes in when the customers buy into the entire concept. So we had the good fortune of being selected by the fast-moving consumer goods and consumer durables sector in India. All these names, they started, 20 of them, and now they are pulling everybody else in. No sales and marketing still in India. All these names are coming in based on referrals. We've already started operations. Obviously, we are very early into it. We are trying to scale the supply. There are some good, there are some bad. People talk about US versus India. There is a lot of similarities and there are some differences. We've been able to adapt to them much more easily than I could tell you. We took literally a week to get the platform up and running, to take it from the US platform to set it up in India and get it going. I think this is the part that makes the startup successful, that makes these kind of ventures successful, because the adoption is key. And that's where we are.
Great. Terrific. Questions?
Thanks for the presentation. How does supply and demand of trucks affect your model?
So the supply comes in as fixed contracts, just like the shippers are used to buying it, one way. We are the primary transporter for those guys. On the supply side, we bring it in as dedicated supply. So that basically increases the reliability of those trucks that supply available to the shippers. So think about it as, just like we do dedicated supply in the short haul situation here, we are introducing the concept of dedicated supply in the long haul. We can do it because we are going across enterprises. It's very, very difficult to do it within a single enterprise.
Let's talk your monetization strategy. You sort of have different stakeholders that utilize your product. Do all of them have to pay? If not, why not?
So nobody pays. So we are like Fisher Investment. Okay? If our client does better, we do better. Our whole approach on monetization is, if we increase the efficiency, we make money. We increase the efficiency more, we make more money. So think about it as one-way contracts that are based on a certain amount of waste built into the system already. We're not changing that. That's all these guys are paying us for. So P&G signs a contract with us they pay slightly below market to what they would pay a carrier, not a broker. The truckers basically get very predictable supply, very predictable revenue, and they get paid on all miles. So instead of 30% empty, if they're doing 10% empty, the price per mile goes down, but even then they end up making much more money. So we keep the spread in the middle. All the money flows through SemiCab.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Hunter. Thank you very much. Thank you. SemiCab, thank you. All right, next we're going to have Strella and Catherine. Here she is. Thanks, Catherine. You just hit that little arrow there to advance.
Which one? This guy?
Yeah.
Hello. Hello, everybody. My name is Catherine, and I'm the CEO of Strella. We're a team of about 20 nerds, anything between electrochemistry, post-harvest physiology, and data science, and we are committed to improving the double bottom lines of all the customers that we work with. 40% of food is wasted before it's consumed, and the reason this happens is twofold. First of all, there's very little actionable, quantifiable data in the supply chain, and secondarily, data within the supply chain is extremely siloed. So in order to solve these problems, what we did was we created shelf life prediction models that allow us to feed that information into better decisions within the chain itself. So fun fact, an apple in a grocery store can be over a year old by the time it gets to you. And right now it's kind of a giant guessing game of which apple can last for a year and which apple can't. So instead of playing that giant guessing game, we built a sensor technology. This sensor can measure the different gases that fruits and veggies produce as they're ripening, and then we use that as an input into our model to predict the shelf life of certain pallets or warehouses full of fruit. We then take this data and we use it to optimize inventory by doing maturity-based inventory management. So if you have an apple that's got 5 weeks of shelf life left over one that's got 10 weeks, we'll prioritize the guy that's got less shelf life. We've monitored over 2 billion apples to date, and we've prevented over 20 million pounds of apples and pears from being wasted. We work with about 60 to 70% of the apple and pear market. And the next thing that we did was we followed the apple further down the supply chain to the retailer. The retailer is basically receiving a black box of a perishable product at the end of this giant game of hot potato, and they're suffering as a result of it. So we created what we call the Strella AQM platform, which allows us to manage quality on behalf of the retailer, and this comprises 2 steps. The first step is we work with the supplier to ensure that they're sending the right pallets of produce to the retailer. So essentially the retailer has certain specs like color, size, grade, but we add an additional layer to that of shelf life. So if it takes 10 days for Walmart to get their stuff through their supply chain, we'll make sure pallets with 10 days of shelf life get shipped out of the supplier. And the second thing that we do is we prioritize produce by shelf life within the distribution itself. So effectively, we modify the expiration dates on pallet IDs so that your most mature pallets get shipped out of the DC first. We've had some pretty awesome results there. On average, we reduce the store level shrink by about 51%, and we're able to also improve the quality of apples on the store shelf by 5 times. The biggest customer in the US that we're allowed to name is Target, so if you buy an apple at Target, I really hope it's pretty good. Otherwise, please talk to me. And the last piece that we're currently working on is bananas. So if you go to the grocery store, you've probably noticed bananas are kind of green or sometimes a little way too ripe. And it's because right now banana ripening is an art, not a science. So whenever we hear that, that's usually when we come in. We basically take the same sensors that we produced and we trained a machine learning model to learn how to ripen bananas properly. So effectively what you can do now is you can hand anybody off the street a tablet and it will show this person how to ripen bananas properly. And that way you won't have to mess up your entire most important produce category just based on a singular individual. Our goal long term is to grow into other supply chain segments and commodities. So I'm sure when you guys were thinking about those bananas on the store shelf, you were also thinking about avocados being way too hard and way too mushy. So that's our direct next step. And then our goal is to be applied to a number of the top 10 commodities that are wasted. Thank you very much.
Great presentation. You talk a lot about going down to the retail store shelf. What about other channels of distribution? So I'm thinking anything food service, hospitals, restaurants, etc. Is that part of the platform today?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do generally operate with a supplier-retailer model, so retailers who operate their own DCs, but we do also work with distributors who operate things like ripening rooms and manage produce inventory as well.
Catherine, thank you very much. Art, I want to ask Art to come up here a moment. If you just stay with us just for a moment. As Art and I were evaluating all of the submissions, and as you know, ESG is a very, very important everything that we do in supply chain. So with CSCMP, as we reviewed all of the submissions and discussed everything, we felt strongly that Strela be awarded the first annual ESG award. So congratulations on that, Art.
So look, why are we here? We're here to celebrate innovation, right? We're here to celebrate success because we're all sick of hearing about how bad the supply chain world is, because it's not. It's actually really good. And to see a molecular biologist decide to build a sensor to reduce food waste, why are we here? This is why we're here. We're here to celebrate innovation, and we're here to make our world better. And this just stood out. I mean, we were blown away. So CSCMP has decided every year from now on to give out an ESG award based on what you've shown us. And you are our inaugural winner. So Rick, if you would please present to you and thank you for, I'm going to apologize in advance for this, but thank you for showing us the art of the possible. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you. All right.
Deliberation time.
We have come to the time where our judges are going to deliberate. So we're going to take just a few moments. We're going to have Jet and Mike come on up. But in the meantime, I'd like to ask the judges to begin your deliberations. Maria's going to come over and hear from you how you feel about the number one submission and presentation for 3Vs and the number one presentation and submission for startups, best startups. So we'll just banter here for a moment, and we'll be right back with our selections.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Just seeing these amazing entrepreneurs and these executives that really put their so much passion into their products and pulling this all together. I thought it was really quite amazing. I'm really excited to see who the winner is. Can I get a drum roll? Who's in charge of audio here? Drum roll? All right. This is one I really liked. There were so many amazing ones. A local line. Come on up. Congratulations. Absolutely phenomenal. Well done. Great. Congratulations. Yep.
All right, Mike. This is Mike from Metro Supply Chain.
Hey, everybody. Again, fantastic, I'd say, courage in developing these solutions, in helping the world, helping us. And thank you to Art and CSCMP in allowing me to make this, this award. So this award is going to, well, it very well deserved, to ISO, John and Brian. Come on up.
All right, where's my partner in crime, Art? Art, come on up here. First of all, thanks. We want to thank all the submissions. There were about 60 different submissions and all these competitions, and everybody did just a wonderful job. I personally also want to thank the judges for all of your hard work. It's not easy to do this, and you guys did a wonderful job. Obviously, Jet and Project 44 and Mike at Metro Supply Chain, really appreciate that. And also CSCMP for supporting all this. You know, CSCMP is all about innovation, all about bringing best-in-class and future ideas to all of us in the supply chain discipline. So Mark, Baxa, thank you for your support. Art?
I don't even know what to say other than thanks. So, but we have one person to thank a lot, which is Maria McDonald. Thanks, everyone. It's just fantastic, and look forward to making it twice as good next year.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.